Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Minish and welcome to another episode of Into Indie. Today we're taking a look at Rogue Legacy. Developed by Celador Games, Rogue Legacy is described as a roguelike game with a twist. For those of you who don't know, a roguelike game usually means you get a randomly generated playing field with permadeath involved. Now, some of you might remember an earlier video I made about this game, back when it was still in beta. However, now that the game is released, I think it's about time for a full review. The story in Rogue Legacy doesn't influence the game all that much. It's told through diaries left in random locations, which tell short pieces of a story about Prince Johannes. He sets out to find a cure for his father the king, and according to legend, the cure can be found in Castle Hamson, but nobody who entered has ever come back out. Just to be clear, you aren't Prince Johannes, he's supposed to be the one who entered the castle before you started playing. Although the story isn't all that important, it's a nice extra in the end, but the main focus here is obviously the gameplay. Here's where things get really interesting. When you start the game for the first time, you'll be playing a random knight. You have to enter the castle and try to make your way to the 4 different bosses in each of the 4 different zones. Chances are you won't even be able to reach the first boss, and that your adventure will end with you dying. Upon death, your character is lost forever and you have to choose one of 3 children to follow in his or her footsteps. Each of your heirs will be different. They're randomly generated with several key features. The first one is their class. There are several different classes in the game, ranging from the paladin that can block all incoming damage, to the archmage who gains mana from killing enemies and is better at casting spells. That being said, the next feature is the spells they have. Each heir will have 1 spell, except for archmages who have 3. Again, there's a bunch of different spells available, each with their own effects. But here comes the most interesting parts, they also have traits. Now, some of these traits are just funny, others are useful, but there's also a few that make the game that much harder. You could, as an example, be a paladin with the sight spell, who has irritable bowels, ADHD and vertigo. This means you fart, run faster and the world is upside down. In other words, traits are awesome. Now, going back to the topic of the death of your previous character, you can rest assured that your efforts weren't in vain. The gold that you've collected from slaying monsters and such is available to your heirs. Using this gold you can buy upgrades in the form of a keep, basically a sort of talent tree for your characters. You can unlock new classes, vendors, additional effects like extra HP and so on. There's a lot to unlock and prices do keep going up, so you need to collect more gold. You can also spend your gold on equipment or enchantments. Equipment usually only influences your survivability or damage, although there are some minor additional effects. Rune enchantments, on the other hand, can change the way you play the game. As an example, you can get runes that give you lifesteal, additional speed, double jump, dash, more difficult enemies, easier enemies, you name it. Each of your 5 armor items can hold a single rune, and all of these runes stack, even the ones that have the same effects. For example, you could have 5 double jumps, which is pretty handy at times. Now, combining runes and armor gives you a lot of choice when it comes to customizing your character. However, the only weapons that are available are swords. I would have loved to see some different weapons that change the way you play. Next up, entering the castle. You'll notice an NPC named Karen standing there, who will require you to pay all the gold you still have as a fee to enter. In other words, you should spend as much as you can before re-entering the castle. Once inside, you'll notice that everything has changed. Rogue Legacy is completely randomly generated. You can get around this though by using the 3rd NPC, the Architect. He'll lock down the castle, but you'll have to pay him 60% of everything you earn. In other words, this is only good for trying to defeat bosses. And now it's time to start killing enemies again, and hopefully you'll survive long enough to give your heirs a nice amount of gold to get stronger with. Honestly, there's not much to complain about when it comes to the gameplay department. Also, the movement and the jumping and platforming and things like that are really fluid. Rogue Legacy is single player only, with a new Game Plus mode which unlocks after you beat the standard game. It took me about 15 hours just to beat normal mode, so you can expect to get a lot of enjoyment out of this game. It can be quite hard at times though, so prepare to feel some nerd rage as you get killed for the 10th time in a row by that same annoying boss. graphics wise Rogue Legacy does its job well. The graphics are crisp and clean, and although the backgrounds might seem a bit dull and boring at times, you don't get much time to stare at them unless you're planning on dying. Lastly, the sound quality is above average, and especially the theme song for the castle gets stuck in your head really easily. Rogue Legacy is a good game, plain and simple. The unique death mechanic is probably the most interesting and enjoyable part of this game. Where other roguelike games punish you with overly difficult situations which get more frustrating than anything else, Rogue Legacy allows you to take some of your accomplishments into your next playthrough. This not only makes the game more fun, but it's also a lot more accessible. Add to this smooth gameplay, fun character design, and a game that's basically endless in its random combinations, and you've got yourself a serious time killer. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And in case you have anything to say about this video or the game itself, feel free to leave a comment.